welcome back to SureFire Live. Good to be back another week. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you out there. I hope you had someone to spend it with or someone to wish it to. And it was a good day for me. I got a thing of $100,000 bars. Probably not the healthiest, but it was a little gift and some other things. So it was good. I hope it was good for you. I got to do a cool thing this last week. I got to go out to Las Vegas and do a Corvette driving racing school, and I got my certificate and I got my pass rating, and it was a lot of fun. I only spun the car off once off the track, and some of you know I've been fighting. I've got a neck issue that I've got to have surgery on, but I talked to the surgeon before I went, and I said, "Hey, can I do this?" He's like, "Yeah, you've already done all the damage to the neck. Your neck you're going to do. We got to fix it with surgery." He said, "Just don't get in a wreck, and you should be okay." So I didn't. So I painkillers and speed. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? So anyway, so tonight I wanted to talk about leadership. I was listening to a podcast from Craig Groeschel, his leadership podcast, and I get a lot of ideas and inspiration from him. And he was talking about breaking bad leadership habits. And I know I've had a bunch. Almost every leader has had some bad either habits or seasons in their leadership game. And, kind of how to do that and how to go through it. And everybody is always learning. It's not like I have arrived at leadership. I've been gone for the last couple of weeks. When I came back to my business, I find all the gaps in leadership, and that's we're going to talk about that. But tonight, surprisingly, I have a surprise guest, which is my good buddy, Mr. Alan Rush. How are you?
What's up, buddy? Good to see you.
He didn't think he could make it, and he was traveling as he always does. Everybody knows he's a road warrior, and he joined me tonight from a hotel room as usual.
We'll see how the Wi-Fi does. Yeah, I just got in like 4 minutes ago, so well done.
So real quickly, before we start the show, just to remind everybody, Alan and I are part of a panel of speakers that's going to be speaking in the MidAtlantic Chimney Association next week, February 24th and 25th in McLean, Virginia. There's a lot of people going. If you still want to go, there are some seats available, and there is online virtual. I've got that link right up here. Let me find it real quick. It is right here, chimneysafety.org. If you go there, you can sign up for the event. And then also the phone number for if you need to call, 757-596-2298. And should be a great event. Alan, I'm looking forward to your talk. What are you talking about there?
Delivering the ultimate customer experience.
Okay.
So yeah, we're basically going to talk about the unsymbiotic relationship that sometimes happens between an office and a technician staff, right? There's a lot of symbiosis that's required, and there's sure seems to be a lot of animosity in most of there's always a blame game that's happening, and until we can realize that both are required for success and we're both dependent on success, and the message that the office gives and the delivery of the experience that the technician gives in the home, until those are one and the same, and then not only that, but I've talked about this before on podcasts with you, is how consistent is the experience that your customers receive based on the individual that goes in the home, right? Is it the Mark experience? Is it the Alan experience? Or is it the Ashbusters experience? And how fair is that to our customer if their report is different, their pricing is different, their just their experience is different based on the individual that comes in the home? Very hard to scale a business into a consistent, profitable way unless we're all using the same reporting language, pricing, et cetera. So we're going to talk a lot about delivering the ultimate customer experience, and really it's going to be synergy and systemization.
Synergy, yeah.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Weird,
play it.
If you haven't seen Weird Al's, look it up on YouTube. Synergy, Weird Al. You'll never use
I've
that.
already submitted my course, but I'm going to find a way to add that
You will
slide.
never,
Yeah,
you,
I'm adding synergy
you
and
won't
going in
use
it.
that word again. Hey, Chad, welcome. Some reason you're coming through on my Facebook feed and not on my personal, not on the SureFire one. So thank you for joining us. I got as Kevin C. Winter said, very true. I'm not quite, that came in late. I'm not sure what he was referring to, but I'm sure whatever we were saying was very true.
I'm sure it's what I said.
Yeah, it's something to do with what you said for sure. And so my course is going to be on building a leadership team around you. Some of the good things about building a leadership teams, and some of the mistakes that I've made and I've seen others make in bringing people up into leadership just because they, have spent a certain amount of time with you, or because you feel like you owe them, and are they really the right leader? What you're looking for, what the position is, and so Kevin was talking about the office in the field. Yeah, that's dead on. I still face that problem. That's a ongoing problem where you can fix it and it doesn't stay fixed.
That's right.
That doesn't stay fixed. There's time in the game where they start to feel, more brave than they did their first 90 days or 1 year. They start to feel entitled. They start to say, this is how it used to be. It's not how it was. That is an ongoing game that you have to play.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I expect some interaction. Let's say that.
Yeah. So let's talk about leadership habits. I printed off, where'd it go? Here it is. I printed off some notes from his podcast, and I just want to talk about what he talked about. So one of the things was breaking bad leadership habits. And he said, hope doesn't change your leadership. If you hope it gets better. And one interesting thing about leadership is, if nobody's following, you're not leading, but that doesn't mean you don't need to learn leadership. Right. And if you want people to follow you, it's the adage of you kind of got to put the wood in the fireplace first before it delivers heat. You got to load up that wood stove with a lot, probably for an hour before that thing gives off heat. And that's the same, in my opinion, with leadership and systems. You've got to put it all in. And, reading one leadership book doesn't change you. Listening to one leadership podcast or going to one motivational event doesn't change you. But when you start to, really get involved in leadership and understand and get heightened awareness for leadership is where you start getting better over time. So, when you start business, I think everybody has a similar goal. Like nobody has the same goal of, I want to panic over making payroll. That isn't one of the goals. It's never, I want to have a bunch of freaking employee problems and pissed off customers. Like that's what I want. Like, no, everybody has the same goals. They want to do something they like. They want to make money. They want to maybe have a bunch of people, maybe have a few people. People enjoy their job. People make good money. We make good money as an owner. But there's very different results out there. We can all start with the same goal, but the results are vastly different across any market of what the results are. In my opinion, it goes down into the leadership and how you disseminate your leadership. So one question I have for you, Alan, is, God, you've been to, 1,000 companies. How many companies do you think you've been in?
Well, if you count virtual, definitely hundreds, but well over 100 chimney companies, but yeah.
So you've seen a lot.
Sure.
You've seen a lot, the good, the bad, the ugly. If you were looking at leadership habits that are bad habits, what are some that you've seen because I'll just give you an example. The other day, you told me about a technician and keeping things straight, but how well a certain technician was doing in the field.
Sure.
It's like a benchmark for us. And we're and I asked you, what was the biggest difference between his results and ours? And you very quickly said, you gave me some things. You gave me a couple things that said, well, he does this and you don't. They think this way and you guys think this, whatever.
Sure.
So on leadership, what would you say a couple of the big ones are?
Well, I think you almost have to go back to who are, if we're specifically talking blue collar, who's typically leading blue collar companies? If you were to take a poll, about 80% of the time, it is a guy who at some point was a technician or some point really loved what he did. And classic E-Myth, right? Like, why am I giving this guy 80% when I can just, do it on my own and make all the money and I have none of the headaches, right? Like, and these people jump into an owner role hoping to make more money doing what they love, and the reality is they no longer get to do what they love, and they're now forced to understand things that they have zero knowledge on, leadership. And all of a sudden, I have workers' comp and I have a payroll, like you said. I have employees. What do you mean I have to meet compliance? What is this OSHA stuff? Like, there's just a million things, right? That we have to
What's
know.
the sales stuff? Sales?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Doing
We got
sales?
like I'm
I'm
great at
already
doing the
amazing.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm already amazing. Yeah, and so it's the classic big dog that will always be the big dog, and always think. I literally just had. I hope he's listening. I literally just had a on the drive down here had an hour consultation with a guy that he's going to need some work, man, and he's the guy that's still in the truck. He wants to work on the business, but he can't because he's in the business, and so we started talking about just simple things. Well, it's unfair. Basic business strategies that a leader would know, right? A basic owner would know. And so, talk to me about your profitability. Talk to me about your P&L. Like, talk to me about what the balance sheet looks like. Like, what's our break even? And there was just no answers to those questions because they didn't know. And how do I find that out, right? So I think when you talk about bad habits or it's really, I'd call it bad strategies. It's jumping into a business when you don't have the skills to make that a business. And so it's okay not to have the skills, but you, at a bare minimum, you got to surround yourself with coaches, mentors, people that can make up those weaknesses for you. So by far, what I see is number one thing is a technician trying to be an owner that doesn't have the leadership or ownership business running skills to make that a true business. Now, if they want to be a one man show, a man in a truck, and want to have a job for the rest of their life, like I do, that's fine. But if you want to scale something into something that's a legacy and bigger than yourself, then you've got to have some of those basic leadership skills.
So a couple comments real quick. Dale Childress, who I love. Dale's a good friend of mine. Dale's an amazing story. You want to see an amazing story? Dale Childress Jr. If you look him up on Facebook or anything, he's big on roof sales and roof training, and he also has an online training system that we've talked to him about. He is an amazing individual. The funny thing about Dale is we call him Dale Jr. He used to fix automobiles in Nashville. He was my mechanic in Nashville, and I took trucks to him. And he's like, "Man, I'm going to do something different. I'm done turning wrenches. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do." And then he got into a couple different things. He said, "You know what? I'm going to buy me my dream home in Florida." Next thing you know, he did it. And then he's created this empire of roof sales, and you should follow him. He's really got some good stuff. So Dale said He admired my leadership skills. So thank you, Dale. I appreciate you. I enjoy your leadership skills and your entrepreneurialism toward what you want in life. It's really an amazing transition for him. Chad Murray says, "You mean employees change?" Kyle German says, "Hello, everyone." And Dale says, "I appreciate you." Chad says, "First thing a blue-collar leader needs is getting themselves right first. Work on you and take what you learn to the employees." Yeah, awesome. That's exactly right. Here's the problem. A lot of times somebody's not holding a mirror up to you. And when they do, you don't like it.
That's right.
And you fire them, or they're scared to tell you. And here's the other thing. The more powerful you get as a leader, the more people don't want to tell you about your own problems. They start protecting you from your own issues. I'll give you an example. I was gone for several weeks. I was on a sailing trip. I was doing some other stuff. I come back, and the people don't want to tell me all the problems. They're like, "We just don't want to bombard you with this." And I'm like, that's what I love. I need to know this. I know everything's not perfect. And when you tell me everything is, I know you're hiding something from me. So why wouldn't you want to tell me? And they're like, well, you've entrusted us to run this company. So if we tell you all these problems, it's like we can't do our job. So I empowering them because I want to know the problems. I tell everybody this business was built on people bitching and people complaining. Not everything going right. Every single thing you look around, every program, every system, everything was because somebody complained we weren't doing something right. So we had a chance to fix it.
Yep.
So back to leadership habits. You see a guy, a technician, trying to be a business owner, and can't make that transition. What would you tell that guy if it were a clean environment? What's your best advice for that habit to break it?
A coach, right? I mean, you need to have somebody that's going where you're going. You need, and the problem is where you're at in your business, and you probably know this better than anybody. There's these levels and there's these ceilings that you hit where all the systems and processes start to break. And the reality is there's a lot of times you got to be in the truck. You've got to be the guy that's either creating the revenue, getting to work, making things happen, getting the jobs done. But it's really really tough to get to work on the business when you're in the business class. I mean, we all know that. So you have to get to a certain point to be able to afford the help that you need to get to the next point. And then once you get to, in my experience in Chimneys, I'd be curious what you think on this too, because I know you do a ton of blue collar coaching. About 1.5 million is like that's like the that's like the breakthrough barrier. Like somewhere around 1.5 million is where it's the hardest your business is. It is the point where you're the stress the most. You're questioning, do I want to even grow, because you were more profitable when you were a little bit smaller, and now all of a sudden you're the guy that everybody still comes to for the problems, but you're too busy. And so my goal when I'm consulting with people is to get them to 2 million. I mean, as fast I run them from like, dude, we got to get from 1.5 to 2 now,
Yes.
because at that point I can at least get a middle manager in there. I can cover a little more overhead. I can bring someone in that's going to have the skill set that you don't to really run the business. And so once we can establish that, look, I want my owners like learning and investing in themselves. But at the end of the day, sometimes their best asset is on some of the support stuff. And if that's their role in the company, that's okay. That's probably what they enjoy doing the most, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny when you talk about, people are afraid to tell you things. Like it's kind of our running joke. Is like, dude, if you don't want to hear about your business, don't hire me, because I'm I'm like, if I go in and everything is running smooth, I have no value, right? I mean, like we're going to work on something now. Whether you're ready to hear that or whether you're ready to make change on that, that's based on where every business is. But
I think the best leaders are also curious. Like, I think if you approach leadership from a curiosity standpoint instead of a leadership, you're more well received. And when somebody tells you a problem, asking a question back, asking a few questions before you give the answer, like from on high, that you're so enlightened, like ask questions why they think that, why it's done this way, how do you think it should be handled, why do you think it should be handled that
so
way,
true.
like asking, being curious on the whole thing, and then maybe giving a solution, to me makes the best leaders. And when they come to work for me, most of them don't have a big ego. Every once in a while you get into somebody that does, but overall, sometimes I've had people come and buy my time just to talk to me about how great they are. And they really didn't want to know what I
That's
had to
right.
say.
That's right.
They just kind of wanted to tell me how their stuff was. And
That's
I
right.
mean, I'll listen to it. If you need me to be a cheerleader,
Yeah.
hell yeah. Yeah. I mean, but why'd you come here? So
It's so true, man. That one of my you've heard me say this a million times, and it's a poster in our wall. It's like you'll continue to get the things you always got if you continue to do the things that you always do. And and my wife's quote of the planet, we still use it all the time, is, "I'm sorry, did you not get the results for the work you didn't do?"
yeah,
you know, I just love it, right? It's so true. And I talk to I go into companies all the time, and and they're top dog, right? They're top dog of their company, and they're proud, and they're, what are you going to teach me, sales boy? And like, I'm already selling $600,000, whatever it is, right? Which in their company is fantastic, and don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic number anywhere.
Yeah.
And then I start talking about guys that I train that sell $2 million or $3 million a year, and all of a sudden the ceiling just all of a sudden got way higher, and they're the realm of possibility. It's the classic story of the marathon guy. I forgot his name, but the guy that first made the 4 minute mile. Like, until he did it, like, it was just never even possible. But the moment that he did it, all of a sudden within a year, 3 more people did it,
Yeah.
because
Now high
someone
school kids do it. Right.
yeah. It's just, now I see it's possible. Someone else is doing it, so I can do it. And I think that's just that's empowerment. One of the things that I love about you, Mark, and if I had $1 for every time you asked me, so what do you think we should do? Right. I'd be a very rich man. And I think you're 100% right. That is a powerful leader. That it goes back to what you were talking about just a few weeks ago of, the villain, the hero, and the guide, right? Is your
Randy.
are you, as a leader, are you always the hero? Are you the guy that's always like right and always winning, and all the wins are for you? Or are you the guy that is the guide, trying to make your team the heroes?
Right.
And if you can be that guy that lets them win, lets them have input, again, if you already have all the answers, then why are you not to where you want to be? So
You
start
know,
asking.
it's so interesting you said. I hadn't thought about the story branding principle as a leadership principle too.
Oh,
You know,
100% it is.
that's a
Yeah.
great insight on that.
Yeah, it's 100%. How can you help our company make you successful, which is going to make us successful,
Yeah.
right? If you don't ask questions to the people that are doing the work every day, if
Yeah.
you don't think that your people have insight on how stupid some of the things that you're doing, or how you could do it in a
Yeah.
much better way, but hey, don't ask me. What do I know? I'm just whatever. Like, you're asking for stagnation. Right. I mean, it's your people that are going to take you where you want to go.
My whole job so I had a kind of a tense meeting today. We bought a powder coating operation, and I'm taking it over from a group of owners that were family, basically.
Mhm.
And we are 2 weeks into the transition, into the merger, and we're moving our metal shop into this building and learning powder coating at the same time, and learning his operation. He's really proud of it. He's a micromanager to death. He's the reason
Yep.
they couldn't grow. And he acts like this is the hardest business in the world to run. And I walked around, in about 2 days, I'm like, this is easy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that to him, but I'm like, a chimney business is 1,000 times harder than
That's
this.
right. Yep.
And my chocolate business is way harder than this powder coating business.
Yep.
But he acts like it's I don't know if you guys are going to get this. I'm like, trust me, we will.
Yeah. Right. Well,
Today.
we appreciate the
A
concern.
month of skin in our knees, and we'd be up and running. And in 6
Yeah.
months, we'll be faster than you running for sure. But
For sure.
in that meeting, very tense meeting, because the management teams, my management team and his management team, are like this.
Yep.
And I really just listened. I listened and asked a lot of questions, even though I own the whole thing. I
Right.
see these two people fighting it out, and I'm the owner, and I'm not fighting. I'm just asking a lot of questions. And by me asking a lot of questions, everything started to settle down. Everybody was making statements. You this, we this, I thought this, you should be doing this.
Mhm.
And that wasn't getting anywhere. It was just making the temperature of the room go up. And
Yep.
as I just stopped, I just didn't allow for that. I just started asking a lot of questions to understand his process, his thought on our stuff. And the whole level of the room ended and was
Yeah.
fine. We're all happy. And it was because I was curious. I wasn't in there making statements. But
Yeah.
I do it all the time to diffuse everything. But a couple comments real quick. I got Kevin says, well, this was, I don't know who this Facebook user is. It says, being able to see the picture from above and not just from within.
Mhm.
Yeah, totally. And sometimes it takes a coach or a consultant to help you back up from it, or a group
Yep.
come in. Kevin says, I'm guilty of calling things that I think could be different and possibly overstepping, but I do it out of experience. If you don't say anything, it shows you don't care about the company. You only care about the check as a technician. I like that point, because I see this a lot happen today also. One of my girls in the office is really passionate. She's going through school. She's learning HR and some stuff. And she says, you know what I'm learning? I think we could apply it over here to this issue we're having. I said, I love that. She goes, well, I don't want to overstep my boundaries and I don't want to get into whatever you have planned. I said, look, that's what I want you to do. First, like Kevin says, you care enough to say something and do
That's
something.
right.
What you don't want is apathy from people who just pull back and say, well, nothing's going to change. I can tell them all day long till I'm blue in the face and nothing will be different. And I hate that. That's a shot to my stomach if someone.
Yep.
But to Kevin's point, so it's how you do it, right? You can, like, I've had a girl care so much that it was damaging.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a level of how you deliver the news in a way that's helpful or hurtful.
100%.
And so thank you, Kevin, for that. And then I think there was another, let's see. Yeah, I think, okay. So that's the questions. Jeremiah. Hey, Jeremiah. Jeremiah works for us and he's on the path for certification and doing a great job with that. Okay.
Nice.
So I want to talk about bad habits again. So sometimes we need to understand what happens in your absence. Understanding what happens in your absence is more important than what happens when you are there as a leader.
Yeah, so true. I mean, that's the definition of culture, right? I mean, you know, how many times have we heard that? You know, your culture is what happens when you're not there. You know when the boss is there, everybody's minding their p's and q's. But you know, when the boss is away, am I making some shortcuts? Am I, you know, maybe a little extra time on my phone or the internet, or maybe a job gets cut a little short? You know, and you know that's 100% true. I love it.
So, and anybody listening, if you want to tell me your leadership bad habits or leadership bad habits that if you've worked for somebody and somebody that was a bad leader, or bad leadership habits that you've seen, not including the current president, we're going to leave that off. We're talking local. So this exact thing is one of my problems. I have a great leadership team, really great. But if I'm gone too long, it starts to develop a weirdness to it because nobody's truly in charge, or people are kind of in charge, and everybody kind of starts making their own decisions. And then it is not quite the same as when I come back. And like when I come back, they're like, man, we're glad you're back. There's a, you know, it's almost a centering device if you're respected as a leader when you're back in, but I don't want that. I want to empower people, so I'm not required to be back in. A lot of people love that feeling of needed, like they need me for everything. I'm the answer to all questions. So on that, do you see, what else do you see out there?
Well, I mean, I am so guilty of what you're talking about, right? I mean, I am. You gotta. I teach this stuff. I'm the classic. Sometimes do as I say, not as I do. Right? You know, it is. I do like to be the person with the answers. I do like to solve problems. And a classic with us for. So you guys know, Mark and I are two of the partners, owners of SureFire, right? Obviously, with SureFire Live, and so when we first launched this thing, I was, you correct me if I'm overstepping, but I was the day-to-day guy, right? I was the guy that, you know, took all the orders. I set up everything. I added people into the system. I answered every email. If an email came in at 10:30 at night, man, I was on it. We were excited. This thing was launching, and literally I lived and breathed the day-to-day operations of SureFire. And then it got to the point where, all right, well, this is not a scalable strategy, right? Like, I can't be the guy doing the stuff. And so we hired what we now know is probably our largest asset in the entire organization, Brianna. And so with Bree, you know, I was very hesitant to hand over some very, very, very basic things, right? I mean, stuff that I mean, as talented as Bree is, I mean, that we could have handed this off to a lot of people. And it was, I had that little voice inside me that said, I know how to do it. I know I do it well. Probably no one's going to do it better than me. And I think our you know,
That's
business owners.
classic. sake,
our,
right there.
our business owners, they know that more than anybody.
Yeah.
And so, and I believe it was you, Mark. You were like, dude, you're an idiot. You're like, it was something to that effect. And I don't know if it was that brash, but you were like, are you kidding me, dude? Like with your time and your travel, like absolutely let this person do it. Let's put some accountability in place. Let's put checks and balances, coach her, train her, do whatever. And now when I look back, whatever we're at 3 years later, I'm like, I can't imagine spending my time. I would go crazy doing the like if I had to check email like every hour and respond to the couple dozen emails that come in every day, or set people up, or add users or move users. She sends us these KPI reports that we still have full visibility to the entire business in a 1-page snapshot of what I would spend sometimes a dozen hours doing. And so I guarantee you that somebody that is watching this has that same little voice. They're the owner. They started the business because they were great at it. No one can do it as good as them. And let's be honest, they can't. And they probably won't do it as good as you. And that's okay. Was it you, or it might have been Larry? Somebody was talking about your borrowing time. The idea that
asset.
yeah, I mean, even if they can only do it 60% as good as you starting off, what would you do with 60% more of your time? And it always becomes profit, always.
Well, it's setting that expectation in your own mind. Like I get a lot of calls and comments like, hey, I'm just able to do this. How can I afford to hire somebody to answer the phones? How can I afford to hire a middle manager? How can I afford to hire another person? And if you have that mentality, which is a scarcity mindset, you won't be able to. But if you have an abundance mindset, that with that will bring more work or more capacity or more scalability or lessen the load on you when you feel like that's going to happen. Now, it won't always happen. Sometimes they always add more work to you at first, and then you get that back. And it's building a time asset in someone. And the analogy that I was told a long time ago was, okay, nobody's going to be 100% as good as you, right? But you'd probably be happy if somebody was 80% as good as you when you hired them. Well, that's really not realistic either. So could you be okay if somebody was 60% as good as you? So in other words, they take 60%, you're still going to have to help them 40% of the time. Would you be okay with that? And if you would, that's more realistic, because you did get 60% of your time back on that task, and then over time they get better and better. Ideally, they're better for you at the end. But you have to set the expectation right in your own mind what you're going to get out of that person and how quickly that should happen. I think
so true.
So
if I go back and look at Brianna now, there's no doubt she knows probably more about the ins and outs and the details of how our business runs than I do. And that's what you want, right? You want them thriving. So all these people that are, I'm the best salesperson in my company. I'm the best tech in my company. I'm the guy I just spoke with. He's like, I'm the gas tech. Nobody knows gas like I do. And it's that same conversation. Yeah, they're not going to until they do, right? But you've got to hire them at a lower percentage until they eventually become a better tech than you.
So then if you flip that, just take that way in advance. Well, for me now, I do not want to know actually almost any of the details of any of the business I run. I really don't. I'm not going to learn how to code. I'm going to learn the process. I'm going to learn the marketing. I'm going to learn the business. I'm going to learn how to scale it. But I'm not going to learn those details. We got an HVAC company. You do not want to call me to fix your HVAC. We got a metal fab division. I'm not the guy to make anything metal fab. We got a chocolate division. I can do the chocolate, but I hired the people to do it. Because, and again, that's the joy that I have, is building businesses and then actually handing that off to people to make it theirs. That's super exciting that they can start acting like it's theirs. And I remember my daughter one time, at one point, our head chef seemed, because she was in the middle of a lot of interviews and people were coming in and talking, and it was like she owned it. And my daughter, she's acting like an owner. It's like, and I'm like, that's great.
Yes.
I don't care if they never know who I am. So
that's right.
So a couple things. Chad Murray, when I asked for bad habits, thank you, Chad. Chad says bad habit. Owners asking employees why they are doing something when the owner doesn't hold them accountable.
Gosh, that's a big one.
That is a big one. I've got a little bit to talk about that. Kobe Armstrong, he's got a gutter company here in Nashville. Avoiding tough conversations. That used to be my problem. Now I like it. Kobe, you can literally decide to like it, and all of a sudden it feels different. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but if you go in curious with the hard conversation, and you ask questions first, they'll give you everything you need for the rebuttal. And you can decide whether to push forward with the accountability piece, or maybe you didn't have all the information. But I like those hard conversations now, man. I have no problem with them. It makes me a stronger leader. It makes the person believe in me. And if I have to have a hard conversation with you, sometimes they're kind of scared, and they should be. I mean,
Yep.
I'm not trying to be a scary person, but usually if I'm having to have a hard conversation with you, you know what the problem is, and it's
That's right.
not this guy. But Chad says, example, owners require SureFire courses to be completed and never hold employees accountable to do the SureFire courses. Then
So
ask
true.
or even get upset when they didn't do them. So that's so true. I want to let's pencil that one to talk about that. Diane Pilger says, I'm not perfect, but it took me a long time to see things about my business perfectly. Then we were able to make changes. Right.
Mhm.
So let's talk about what Chad was saying about SureFire courses. This is a great example. It isn't what you say in leadership, it's what you tolerate, right? What you say in leadership does not matter. It's what you tolerate. So you can say all day long, hey, do your SureFire stuff, or do this, or do that, wear your helmet, be safe. And then they don't do it. Then what do? In your world, I don't want to fire a guy for not taking online courses. I don't want to fire a guy for not wearing his helmet. Like, what matters to you? So here's the other side of that, Chad. And I know you take this seriously, but let's just say you bought the SureFire platform for your company, and you're paying X amount of money for this really good education, and they're not taking it. My son taught us this question. Well, you must not take education seriously in your company. You take buying stuff seriously, but you don't take the actual educating of your technicians seriously if
Right.
they cannot take the courses and still have a job. So for us, we have a person in charge of it, and you have to go through it. Jeremiah has gone through it. We've had several conversations because there was an understanding and a misunderstanding and now a re-understanding. And he knows I'm serious about it, as our whole company does. But some people, they buy this gym membership and nobody goes to the gym. Well, it
Yep.
didn't matter to the people you bought it for. They don't care about the education because they still got their job.
Yeah,
How do
that's
you
so true.
So to Chad's point, how do you see people implementing change?
Well, let me ask you. Let's do the politician thing. Let me ask you that by asking, or answer that by asking you this. So one of the things that, and I do think you're one of the best leaders that I personally know. I think what, and people that are listening to this should be able to relate to this. What is the line between accountability and micromanagement? Right? What is the line between that's, I'm going to let that slide, or you know what, that's a a core value, that's a principle. I'll give you a couple examples of I've got some clients that, I mean, have rock stars. I'm talking, these guys are killers, like, right, they can let's just for made up terms, let's just say they're a $2 million salesperson, right? But they're 10 minutes late every day, right? And it's allowed. It's like, I've told you 100, I put you on probation, I've written you up, I have done this stuff, and the owner is absolutely terrified to do anything. Like, I can't fire the guy; he's making me $2 million. And so, what does that conversation say to the other people that are following the rules, that they may not be producing at that level, but they see him getting away with it, and I'm not allowed to get away with it. So there's that whole, right, accountability thing. And then there's also the what I would call the, I guess, to Chad's point, the micromanagers, or the what I call the SOP, or the manual kings, right? Like for every single tiny problem in my business, that's never going to happen again. Let's write a policy for it. And by the next thing you know, we've got a book that's, this thick that no one even knows what's in it. And hey, you didn't follow it, man. I signed that 2 years ago. I just forgot that even existed. So like
Right.
as a leader, like how do you define the priorities in your company? How do you balance fairness? Is there such a thing as special treatment? And how do you manage accountability? And what do you decide is important to hold accountable, and what do you allow to slide?
So since you know me, I have a really strict attendance policy.
Yep.
I don't care if you're my number one guy or not. You have to abide by it. And I fired my number one guy that made me the most money because he was late and had an attendance problem.
Yep.
My problem is if you don't hold one person accountable, I mean, you can't hold anybody accountable if everybody, you know what I mean? You can't
Yep.
let somebody get by because he makes me money. And I remember having this conversation with another guy who had a real bad poisonous person in his company, but he was the number one technician. He brought in the most money. He trained the other guys, but he was caustic to everybody, including office. And I remember asking him, I said, so let me get this straight. If somebody makes you enough money, you'll put your integrity to the side.
Yep.
Is that right? Is that what I'm understanding? If I make you enough money, you're okay with me abusing your office staff, even saying bad stuff about the owner, doing all this stuff. If I make you enough money, you'll just scrape that to the side. Is that how this works at this company?
So awesome.
And he's like, his eyes got big and he was conflicted. And in about 15 minutes, he called and fired the guy, his number one guy, because of that. So to me, the 10-minute, if the policy is that, you have to do that. It's what big boys do. Now, sometimes a superstar may not be great at, say, keeping his van clean. He may not be great at all the paperwork, but he's doing this. Is there a way I can put something around him to make him more successful? It may have to cost him something.
That's right.
If I have to have a driving Miss Daisy, if I have to have a driver for him, or I have to have a secretary for him always doing his stuff, it's got to cost him something.
That's right.
Or
I love it.
You know what I mean? Like, okay,
there's some buy-in, right? There's a consequence.
No buy-in. You're just like, oh, I'm a superstar, just take it or leave it. Well, I'll leave it because there's a ton of superstars out there. If you give me enough time and give Ken enough time and go through our process, one will pop out and one with less baggage than you. And so I am not afraid of losing that number one guy, but I won't let that creep up. I used to. I mean, we all, to Kobe's point, avoiding that. You avoid it because you're like, oh, I'm so glad I got people to work for me. It's hard to get anybody. And they're actually doing good work. I know they got all this luggage. I know we have to pick them up from their house, 3 days a week. Or I know they've got, 14 warrants out, or they've got, there's a sheriff showing up all the time for, garnishments, but that's no big deal.
Yeah.
They're great. And then you're building
so
inside your company. And so once I decided to not have those kind of people in my business, we just got better. It's not like we're perfect, but we just got better the more we.
So what would you say, and I feel like I'm turning this interview around on you because I love this topic. I think this is one of the things that that a lot of the guys that I work with struggle, is that idea of the indispensable employee, right? The idea of being held hostage, because if this guy goes, then all of a sudden I'm already booked out 3 months, and then he's the only guy I got that can do basic. He's the only gas tech that I got. If he's gone, then I'm screwed, man. I've got $100,000 worth of deposits on work that this guy's supposed to do, right?
Well, so let me just say something to that real quick. When that happens to us, we also have a commitment to the customer to make sure we got their job done. So I may put a marker on that guy and let him work out to get a couple of these things done so I can still take care of my customer. If I fire him, it won't hurt me as much as it may the customer or the rest of my team. So I sometimes have to space that out. But on our attendance policy, it'll get you fired the day you cross 24 points. But with COVID, that had to change for me. I had to not be as strict. COVID messed up my really awesome attendance policy. We still have it. This has a lot more flexibility than it used to. But to that point, I think we're going to okay, he's going to go through the busy season. He is not making it to next busy season. but we're going to
Yep.
also warn him. We're going to give him all the stuff to get better. And most likely we got a pin in him to, as soon as we got our commitments filled, we're going to have to let him go. I mean, unfortunately, that's just sometimes how it is. So we can still provide service.
For sure. And I think this goes back to a bigger issue, right? Of we're always hiring reactively instead of proactively, right? It's well, anytime you only have one guy that can do one thing, I get it. I mean, you got to have budgets, you got to have overhead covered, you got to have all these things happening. But most of the time, when people are trying to hire, is when they have a hiring need. And so one of the things I know that you and Kent and a lot of your staff do very well is that you're always hiring.
We're
You're
always trying.
always looking.
Yeah.
You're never not, even if you don't have a position available, you're still talking to people. You're still
We'll
interviewing
add
people.
water to the soup. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And
We will get, if it's a superstar, we're going to bring him on. If Kent says this guy is just lights out and we got to move on him, we move on him. And we'll those great people find a spot and they find more to do inside the company. And those are the ones you just, you really want. Chad said, he said, if someone is let's say having an attendance issue, my question is, what else is he doing not in my image? Oh,
that's
so
a great point. Yeah.
that is, to his point, and I've said this before on the show, but one time I was watching a presentation, and I think you may have been there, but they showed a picture of Indiana Jones. Do you remember this? And
It's vaguely familiar. Yes.
so they showed a picture of Indiana Jones. So in your mind, who do you think of when you talk about Indiana Jones, right? So do you think of Disney? No. Do you think of George Lucas?
Yeah.
No. Those are actually who owns Indiana Jones. Who you
Wow.
think of is the employee, which is Harrison Ford.
That's right.
He is not Indiana. He works for Indiana Jones. He
So
is
true.
the employee. Now, that's the same for your business. And as a leader, as Chad said, are they in your image? Are they representing you right? Because at the end of the day, you write the checks. You're responsible to the bank. You're responsible to the customers. You're responsible to your family, and they aren't. And so are they acting like you would? Now, that's tough. I have guys that don't act like I would, and I've got some guys act better than I would. But in general, it is the shadow of the leader, how you handle stuff. And to that point, to Chad's point, I also read problems that we have, like complaints, to my employees at our meetings at times. And then I'll also read how I responded to them. So, because sometimes I have to fall on the sword and we did something wrong and I tell them, and then sometimes I have to defend, but I want them to know how I react, because they react just like me. If I fly off the handle, they start saying flying off the handle.
Right.
If I cuss, they start cussing.
Yep.
If you know what I mean? Whatever I find valuable, they say, oh, well, that's okay. And then I'll do that too. And that's a shadow of the leader. A couple more things. Says, when it comes to my sons, I'm impatient, but other people I'm training, I have all the patience in the world. But my bad leadership skill is spreading myself too thin. So congratulations. If you're entrepreneurial minded, that was what, some of the things are what you're going to stop doing, and bad habits to break. For me, it's overcommitment to too many things.
Yep.
Right now, in the last 6 weeks, I've been overcommitted to so many things that all lined up back to back that it's hard. And I had to tell myself, I'm going to have to say no to even stuff I want to do.
Oh, so true.
And you're the king of this problem.
Yeah, this guy just happened, man. This is a guy that, I mean, you couldn't ask for a guy that I could do more help to. I mean, I literally turned him over to Kent and Ray. I said, I was like, man, I would love to help you. The amount of work it's going to take to get you at the speed that you need to get there, because you've got a 6-month window before you hit the wall again.
Right.
The amount of speed that you've got to go, I'm not the guy that can guide you there. And I'm so using the word guide so often now. Thank you for that whole story branding thing. I've actually incorporated it into my sales training now. It's the idea of, are you the technician that's going in there and talking about how you called the right person because I can find the problem, I can fix the problem, and you called the right guy? Or are you the guy? Are you trying to position yourself as the hero, or are you the guy that's going in there, that consultant mindset that we talk about, that says, man, how can I help you? How do I make you the hero? How do I solve your problems and
Yeah.
reinforce that you made the right decisions?
To that point, that's what leadership is too. When people, today I had a conversation with a technician who's having some health issues. I can't solve them, but I can listen to him and find out what he needs from me. Does he need time off? Does he need something from me? Does he just need an ear? Does he need somebody just to talk to?
Yep.
And again, a very important leadership quality. I'm getting several comments now. Thank you guys for this. Kevin says there is a line I struggle with paperwork a lot because I don't like keeping the customer waiting. So I tend to do things after work. I hear a lot of feedback about that, and I'm very against time wasted. Hey, it's not my money, but it really is a pet peeve of mine. It drives me insane. So again, that's a decision you're making at the time of service to either delay, procrastinate in a way. I'll do it later or do it now. And so, again, I think, Kevin, to that point, Alan, how would you handle this? You handle this every day.
Oh, I would tell you to use what I call the marination period to your sales advantage. So, there's if you've listened to any of my training, I am a huge proponent of breaking down the need barrier of the customer in small incremental bites. The technician that goes in and does a full evaluation, scans the chimney, gets on the roof, puts together a report, and then sits down with the customer and just pukes all over them about all these problems that they didn't know that they had. And the customer's like, what are you talking about? I just used this 2 days ago. I've lived in this house for 30 years. I've never had a problem. My granddaddy built this house, and you're like, and then, oh, by the way, it's 12 grand to fix all this stuff. And they're like, get out of my house. Like, you crazy man. And you from the customer, right? And so I teach the idea of no surprises at the proposal, right? The idea of my customer is going to know every problem they have well before we sit down. They're going to watch the scan with me. They're, as soon as I get off the roof, they're going to go, and I'm showing them pictures. I'm showing them the good news, the bad news, the ugly, and I'm letting them know exactly what I'm getting ready to go do in the van for the next 30 minutes.
Right.
But I get it. It's probably overwhelming. You weren't expecting this, but I'm going to take care of this for you. Let me get the numbers together. Let me get the, fine tune this proposal. Hang out for me. I know this is frustrating, but give me 30 minutes. I'm going to get all your pictures together. Let me get some numbers together. Let's sit down. Let's hash this out. Let's figure out how we solve this problem. And that 30 minutes that you're there doing the paperwork that you're going to do no matter what, you're going to spend that 30 minutes doing the paperwork, whether you get home and that cuts into family time or you do it in the truck. If you use that to your sales advantage, I mean, what do you think that customer is doing for that 30 minutes after they know that you're getting ready to come in? You've already told them they need a joint repair. You've already told them that they need a full coverage cap. You've already told them that, hey, their chimney's deteriorating. It's getting water in there, you've already went through all this in their head, man. That number is just kind of churning. Maybe they're, the best case scenario, they're calling their husband, they're calling their wife, baby, I don't know, he's got a lot of problems. He's showing me pictures. He's getting ready to come in here. That anticipation builds, and so when you allow that to happen, you've already broken the need barrier with the customer. So when you come in, you don't have to deal with that shock and awe and the whole, oh my gosh, they've already had time to settle down for that. And now we can have an honest conversation about solving that problem.
Well, and Kevin also, we always say, so let's just say you go home and you do that and then you email it back to them, you've killed the sales process right there. Now we're getting off topic. We were talking about leadership, but basically I know people do it all kinds of different ways, and they send it home and make it look nice, send it back to them. But for us, part of the sales process is delivering that face to face so that you can handle objections, so that you can see that, oh my God, or you can go ahead and book the appointment, or you can get the husband on the phone, or you can continue the sale. Because when you walk away and say, hey, I'm going to email this to you, I'll get back to you, they don't know what happened. And lastly, when they get that report back, they don't understand all those things that you said and were super clear to you. When you say crown repair and liners and remove tiles, and they don't know any of those terms anymore. They've already forgot what you're talking about. So to walk that through with them to us is important. And I don't want my guys working at home. I know some of them do, but I'd like you to be able to shut Ash Busters off and go home and spend time with your family, rejuvenate, do whatever you got to do to come back and work on it, but work on it, during the work hours, if at all possible. Don Ross, and I've been talking to Don this week. He's getting back in the game. Don says, "Oh, Mark, I know all about overcommitment. It's a constant battle. If you're a worker, like a lot of us are, we tend to like to work, and sometimes we work too much."
Yep.
Back to Kevin, he says, "I don't like wasted money in a company. I see it differently because I owned a business, and I guess I understand the financial half. Though it's not my business, I chose to work, and I feel for a loss, etc. Because I see a $20,000 a year as an employee or bonuses, or etc." Right? When you see waste in a company, if you Mr. Waste is our number one paid employee, and getting it back on leadership. That's one of my jobs, is to find that and cut it out, figure out how we can smooth out the process. There'll always be waste in a company, but in a service business, sometimes it's six figures a lot of times, and seven figures in some cases.
Yeah.
One more thing. Thanks for all the comments, Kevin. He said, "I do the whole evaluation, etc., then have to explain or write up and then upload, etc. We have a 2-hour heads up time. I spend an hour and 30 minutes doing the report, and all the customer and paperwork part is the office use." So that's how you guys do it. But the more time with you, Kevin, the more likely they are to buy it. Mm-hmm. If you go through the whole process, again, whenever I'm emailed an estimate from anybody, I don't even look at the items. I look at the bottom right-hand corner and go,
"That's right.
Do I want to buy this or not?" And I talk about this. I bought a phone system at one point. I told the guy all the things I wanted. He came over. We had a wonderful meeting. And I thought the bill was going to come back maybe $4,000. Came back $13,000. I'm like, holy cow. I didn't respond back. I was like, well, I'm going to call somebody else. Well, luckily, he followed up with me. He goes, "Hey, man, did you get that proposal? What'd you think?" And I'm like, man, it was a lot of money. He said, "Well, I did, I showed you everything." I said, "I didn't understand any of your line items. PDR this and system that and 12 switch this and giga that. I don't know what you're talking about. I saw phone system $12,000. And in my mind, phone system $4,000.
That's right.
So he came back to me. We went back and forth. We pared it down. I ended up spending about $8,000 because I understood my brain was not in the right number. And but to that point, Kevin, if you email those bids, you have to have some kind of follow-up system. If you email it, have them on the other side. This is a whole nother conversation because we could get on this show too.
Dude, you're going to get me on sales.
I know. Let's get back on leadership. You can do sales when you do the show. So I had, here's a couple other things. Here's some bad habits I've seen other leaders have. Procrastination, of conflict avoidance, like Colby said. I see them doing stuff they won't allow their people to do, like coming into work late, not showing up. Like I've seen those bad habits. And the thing about bad habits is they pay off immediately. Yep. But good habits take forever to pay off. They can take months or whatever. Good habits don't immediately show up in our lives. The bad habits, man, you can get it right now. You can eat that cake. And I talked about atomic habits a couple of weeks ago. I was going to talk about a study that I read that he talked about. So it talks about who you're around is who you become. So, be around 4 millionaires, you'll become the 5th. Be around 4 junkies, you'll become the 5th, whatever the thing is. But here's a study of the closer you are to someone, the more likely you are to imitate their habits. They went over 12,000 people over 32 years. And if they were around a person that was obese, 57% of the people became obese. If you were a third of the people, 33% of the people, if they were around someone that lost weight, a good friend, they lost weight too. And it is who you're around. The more you're around something. So I went to this driving school out in Vegas this last week. Well, the guy I was with eats one meal a day. He weighs 150 pounds, Mike Barrett, but he eats one meal a day. Well, I started feeling guilty because I was eating breakfast and lunch and dinner, although they were healthy and low. He's like, dude, I can't eat it. You're eating all the time. I'm like, eating all the time? I mean, like kind of normal stuff. I had some oatmeal for breakfast and I had, light sandwich at lunch and I had something for dinner, he's like, I can't eat this much. And I could tell if I was around him a lot more, I'd eat less. I just would.
Yep.
And you just follow, who you're around. Let me check some more things. So Diane says, we all need to know at what point we get overwhelmed so it doesn't happen. When when you reach that point, right after you're there, right? Like, I'm overwhelmed. My daughter gets a look in her eyes when she's overwhelmed, and her eyes get big. She's not funny at all. She's like stressed. And so then Chad says, bad habit, focusing on the easy stuff and not getting in deep at the deep end of an issue is what is like an elephant growing in their mind, habit of not changing. Ooh, that's a good one. That, I think, is the number one problem in our industry. What he just said to me is what I've gone to conferences for years and seen guys that I really like, and nothing has changed in their business in the whole 10, 20 years. And that's their choice. But they go to these conferences, they take a lot of notes, they're in the classes, and literally don't do a damn thing when they get home.
I get it, man. Leave me alone.
They call it convention land, right? You go to convention land and everything's possible. And all these speakers have the best lives and everything is great. And then you get home and real life hits. A guy falls off a ladder, customer's pissed off, another guy doesn't show up, and you're back into firefighting mode. And all that stuff that happened at the convention is long in your rear view mirror. So tell me, what would you suggest to people for they're getting in the bad habits of not doing anything?
So, you actually said this earlier, and I'm not giving any kind of new information here, but I think it's so important. It's never what are you going to do, it's what are you going to stop doing, right? I mean, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? I've talked about this before. I'm not proud of it, but I have an Angry Birds addiction that I spend like 15, 20 minutes every morning. Like I have my coffee, I read like an Audible, and I play like 15 minutes of Angry Birds. And when you start really when I really process that, I'm like, did I really just spend like an hour and a half in a week throwing a bird across my phone? What could I have done with that? Like, I'm the one that's like, I don't have time to do anything. And so, it's but that at the end of the day, that's a choice that I'm making. I don't watch TV. I don't, watch movies that often. Like, so that's my little bit of fun in my life. But it's the idea of, if you want to do something, what are you going to stop doing? It's not, again, we talked about this at the last thing. It's not I am going to I need to lose weight. I'm going to stop eating. I'm going to start exercising. It's like, what am I going to do instead of that? And until you have that mindset of, it's not what I'm going to do, it's the time that I'm going to give up so that I can do these things, you're just not going to, it's not going to happen. There's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah. Again, delegation is probably the one thing in this industry that people struggle with, and then also training your leaders to actually have true grip and a bite if something's wrong. Like, that's tough to give up that thing. Let's see. I had also that. Do you like the direction that your habits are taking you? Right? Our habits are taking us somewhere. So for instance, I got all these good excuses that work for me. I've had some injuries, haven't been able to work out, and my habits have turned into, me not being as good a shape, not feeling as good, having these other issues. And I told a few people, as soon as I get done with these couple of things I have to get done, I'm going to be focused on my health. But the question to the audience, do you like where your habits are taking you? If you do, great. But if you look internally, maybe not all. Now, 15 minutes of Angry Birds, man, you got to have some fun. You got to listen. Well, yeah. You got to have some fun in this life, or why are we doing it?
Dude, I'm 1201 level. That's like probably 200 hours, like over the 4 years.
Playing the free version.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's a pay to win kind of thing, or win super slowly.
Yeah, I don't do that.
On your 1200th level of Angry Birds.
I'm pretty good at it.
I know. There's probably very few of you out there.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I think onto that point though, it's and I'm going to just call myself out on this. Besides the fact I just called myself out on that, is if you know me personally, you guys know that I've been battling really extreme vertigo for like the last like 3 or 4 years. I mean, honestly, pretty debilitating. I haven't even been on a roof in like 3 years. Like every day is like a dizzy day. I mean, sometimes even teaching classes is a struggle, and it's kind of my new normal. But as part of that, I used to be. I wouldn't call myself an exercise guy, but I was certainly I was very active. I'd walk 3 or 4 miles a day. I would, I maintained uh, decent eating, decent physique, decent whatever the case may be. And then when I started getting really dizzy, all the things that I used to do, like walking and cardio and treadmills and all that stuff, I really couldn't do anymore because I got too dizzy. And and I'm just throwing myself out there. I gained a lot of weight in the last year because I wasn't doing the exercise. And so I went and talked to my cardiologist about just everything, and he's like, "What are you talking about? You can't exercise." He's like, "Yeah, you may not be able to get on a treadmill, but it's not like you can't lift a weight or you can't, like put your leg down on a lift." Or he's like, "Stop telling yourself that you
yeah,
can't do stuff and just start doing it." And God, it
exactly.
would just hit me so much. I was like, "He's so right, man." I just lied to myself. I was telling myself stories. I was using it as an excuse to say, "Well, poor me. I'm dizzy. I can't do exercise." And it's like, man, but I can do these other 20 things. And
Yeah.
so
There's
I think
there's
that's a
this one thing you
limiting
can't. Yeah.
that it's a limiting belief, right? I think we sometimes just tell ourselves stories so we don't have to put in the work, and we justify our reasons as excuses. And I think that's a huge leadership flaw, and
Well, it
yeah,
happens in growing businesses too. I work with people who they want to give their excuse why they can't. The city they live in, their wife, their brother-in-law, their whatever is the reason. And I'm like, man,
yep,
are you trying to convince yourself or are you trying to
that's right.
convince me? Like
So
who
true.
like you convince yourself that this is true. And since you have convinced yourself it's true, it is true.
That's right.
But how bad do you want it? Do you want it more than your excuse, or do you not want it? It's that old story of the dog on the porch. Like, quick story that the salesman, door to door salesman back in the day, is walking along. I think he's selling life insurance. He's walking along a dirt road trying to find the next house. He heard this hound dog on the porch. Oh, that's as good as it's gonna get for me.
That was great.
Oh, and the guy's like, man, that dog sounds like he's in pain. He's like, man, I wonder what they're doing to that dog. And he walks around, he keeps hearing this dog every few minutes just go off. He rounds a corner, he looks up there, he sees this dog sitting on the porch next to a guy in a rocking chair. He's rocking, and his dog's right beside him, and he gets up to him. He's like, man, what's wrong with that dog? He's like, oh, this dog, he's like, he's sitting on a nail. He's like, well, why doesn't he get off the nail? He's like, guess it doesn't hurt bad enough.
That's right.
And that is a lot of business owners, and that's a lot of people. They bitch and complain, but it just doesn't hurt bad enough to get off the nail that's causing them whatever they're talking about.
Complacency and comfortability is the biggest uh, deterrent to growth and success. I,
Yeah.
I mean, when you're hungry, when you need to feed your family, when you need to make payroll, when you find a way,
Well,
right?
that's why
Whenever,
immigrants are so much more likely to be successful than people born here. They see the
100%.
opportunity. They're out there working. They're after it. And we're born here, and we've got a lot of great stuff, and so you're just not that hungry.
Yeah, it's amazing when you find your happy place, your comfortability, when you feel that you're successful or you feel that you're content is the moment that you stop. I did a class literally yesterday with a company for 8 hours, and one of the topics that came back, they're like, man, like it's amazing, like how much you know about like sales psychology and all this kind of stuff, and they're like, God, I mean, it just feels like you know all this stuff about sales, and I was like. It's like, well, let's just talk about that. Besides the fact I do this every day, how do you think that I know what I know about sales? Like that, do you think I just I was gifted that at birth. Like, is that, not being a smart aleck, because
We're like, there's a salesman. Look at him.
look at him.
He can
Oh
sell.
yeah, well, he's not going to be on TV. Let's let him sell. And so the yes, I do believe I have a gift at sales. I believe I'm good at sales, but I still, we just talked about this in Florida a couple of weeks ago. I've got 30 books still on my Audible that I haven't even watched yet or listened to yet, but there's another 100 sales books that I have. And so the only way that you continue to grow is to continue to listen, to continue to hear new ideas, to continue to tweak. And the moment that you feel that you're there, like if I just stopped and said, man, I got the sales thing knocked. Like I am so obsolete in a year. I mean, you know how fast this stuff changes. You think the way we sell today is the way we sold 3 years ago, like
Yeah.
before COVID? Of course not. You have to stay relevant. You have to stay hungry. You have to stay like, what's the next step? Otherwise, you will slowly die.
Taylor Hill commented, and this is to your point too. Taylor said, thinking you can stop learning, stop growing, and stop changing are the biggest bad habits. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. Dead on. Jacob Cromwell says, sacrifice is always necessary for profit. That's good.
Yeah.
That is good. There are sacrifices. A lot of times you have to make it as an owner, and a lot of times it's unseen. But yeah, that's a great point. There's definitely that. Diane says, I'm somewhat of a procrastinator. So sometimes the most difficult thing is the decision to act, or just tell John to do it. That's the other option. She's like, I don't want to do it. John, you do it. So I love the Pillagers. So good stuff, man. Let me check. Kevin had a couple more things. Kevin says, and we'll wrap this show up. Kevin says, we are very trained on that part of making the customer aware so they know right away, so they know the risk, and all of not having what we spend at the time and show the estimates during that time with customer. The paperwork I struggle with is what I explained to the office. Oh, I see. So yeah, I mean, that's systems, and that is, again, it sounds like Kevin works for a company, but man, you're asking and saying the right stuff. So basically, that's a topic for the owner. And then this is where leadership comes in to take your information and then try to do something with it, or bring it into part of how you guys run as a business. Because again, my business is built on people complaining. If Kevin was working for me and he's like, man, we need to do this different, I'm listening. I'm all ears. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. Sometimes it takes longer than they want it to. But that's absolutely how you make a company better, is people talking.
We should totally do an episode on just sales systems, processes, just nothing but that. Because I mean, I could literally talk hours on what he's talking about right now, and it's certain. It goes into the consistency thing that we started this with when I talked about the class that we're doing in MACA. If everybody's not doing it the same way, if people are reinventing the wheels every single time, like if you find yourself writing the exact same thing 3 times a day on a different proposal, and you're manually taking time to do all this kind of stuff, it's just so crazy to me. There's so much, even if you don't have money to invest in a system, there are so many free tools out there. So we could talk about that for days.
I think too, Chad is really good at new systems. So maybe we'll have Chad on to talk about
beautiful.
When he rolls through a new system, how does he get buy-in? How does he get people? What are the consequences when you don't? Because he just rolled in safety and it was hard. And I was with a couple of his conversations. It's hard for me too. He rolls in new systems, and then you got to get buy-in and people doing it and consequences and people watching over it. Kevin says, I have a great listener. He listens very well. Oh, Kyle German. So maybe Kevin works for Kyle, it sounds like.
Yeah, awesome.
So that's cool. And Kyle's been on it, man. He's on a mission, and I'd love to see him really out there, really getting engaged. And that's how we get it. That's how we do it. We just get engaged and be full in on whatever you're doing. Kevin, if you're new to this game, or maybe you're not new to it, but the only way is being fully in of anything. Be the best you can be. Be the best leader you can be. Study the best. Or if you're a technician, be the best technician. Be the most helpful to your people you work with and the owner. Like, as an owner, what do you want? The guy who complains all the time and has no solutions, or the guy that comes to me complaining with an idea for a solution? But you know what I mean? Like, that's what I want. I don't want the guy just to not say anything. I need the guy to talk to me and see if I can fix it.
You know the biggest the worst thing that an owner can ever hear. I'm sure you know this. Like, what's the worst thing an employee can tell you about why they did something?
Well, why they did something, or why they did.
Yeah, like no, why? What do you do? Why do you? What's the way we always did it?
Oh God.
Yeah, it's
It's
the way.
easy. That's why we always did it, or that's not my job. Those are
Oh,
both those are killers.
it is at like why would you do that whenever like you come to me and you tell me about this great way to do it, but you're doing this other well, that's the way I was taught. It's like, oh my gosh, please bring that to me next time because you just saved not only 10 minutes an appointment, but you take that across my 30 people, you probably just saved me $50,000 in payroll just by that one little simple thing.
And to that point, as a leader, that's why education is super important for your group, because a lot of times as leaders, we go to these conferences by ourselves or take one person or something. We come back with the information, we try to disseminate it, and it doesn't disseminate well. You're better off taking guys and taking women with you to these things. And yeah, you may spend money on them and they may leave you, but that information stays part of your culture, stays part of your business, and it grows. Even if you lose everybody you took 2 years ago, those people train the next people, and
That's right.
that information doesn't get lost because you lose people. I know I spent tons of money on people and then lost them very soon after I spent money. And sometimes I spend money and they stay with us, but no matter what, that education got into the company and we did something with it. And so as leaders, one big bad habit people have is just going to education by themselves. You know,
And with lack of implementation and accountability actually creates you might as well have almost not even went
oh,
because I assure you your people are going, oh my god, Mark's going to another business seminar, he's going to come back and he's going to have these 5 new things that we're going to do for 2 months and then he's going to forget all about it.
right.
Right, like it's so I can tell you how many people when I do individual interviews with an employee, they talk about, yeah, he has great ideas and we do them for a week and then, we stop doing them and no one, we forget about it
Nobody
ever
cares,
happened.
right?
Oh
It was
my
a great
gosh.
idea at the time. And
Yeah.
it is tough to implement. It's not hard to start it. It's hard to keep it up, no
That's right.
matter what system it was, or whether it's attendance, safety, paperwork, whatever it is. It's easy to say it and watch for it for a little bit. It's hard for it to become part of who you are over time. I got a couple more and then we'll wrap this up. Kevin said, correct. Correct. The leader listens and lets his guys make mistakes to stand back up. If you pick them up all
Yeah.
the time, they expect it all the time. That's not leading. Right. It's true. And then he said, throw them to the wolves, then question what went wrong. That's, I remember kind of doing some of that with my early on guys. I'm like, I just need you to get out there and do it, and we'll fix it. Very early on when I was, especially like somebody's tuck pointing something. Go after it. Okay, we might have to clean it up, but like, not lining stuff, but there's stuff that, they've got to get out there and go to the wolves a little bit. A
Well,
couple more things. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say one thing, like if we can give a SureFire plug here, this is probably one of the most underutilized benefits of SureFire, and that is the ability to create accountability SOPs and checklists that people have to interact with. So if you're a team leader on SureFire, you can create your own courses, you can create your own training content, you can create literally to-do lists for people on a daily basis. Like I've got one company that I work with that they had people losing tools left and right. Man, they would always leave a flashlight, a tape measure, what you name it. And they had another guy that was just not cleaning up job sites the way that he should, and just not delivering the experience that they wanted to do. So literally they went on SureFire and they created a checklist every day. This guy had to go in and he had to say, I have my flashlight. It's micromanaging at its best. It's just an example, but he literally had to go in every day, and then the owner would go in and check and say, "Okay, he did that. I feel good about it." It's a real simple accountability system, and let me tell you, it only took 3 days of that guy realizing that he had to log in and answer these questions for that problem got fixed. But SOPs. You have a new SOP. Hey, this is the new company policy. I disseminate to everybody. You can have your employees virtually sign it right on SureFire that they've read it, they understand it. You have a record of that forever.
I mean, that was reason SureFire even came around, was because the accountability piece. I could give my books and my CSI study material to, and hope you read it, hope you learned it. Then I paid for your test, or I sent you to school. I spent a lot of money to find out you may have read it, but you didn't comprehend it. You may have not read it at all. You were hoping the review would give you all the answers, or something in between that. Yet as an owner, I wasn't sure what you picked up from it. And
right.
so, with the SureFire thing, with all the stuff, you can see what they comprehended. You can see what they didn't comprehend. So you can tailor what you need to talk to them about, and that they're really doing the work. Because my point on SureFire is, if they're not going to do SureFire, they're probably not going to do my paperwork right.
That's right.
If they're not going to do what I'm asking them to do early on without a lot of pressure on them, they're probably not going to do all the things I need them to do with pressure on them. And being a chimney sweep technician is tough, man. There's a lot of pressure on you.
The last thing on SureFire we can get off to, I know we got to close up here, is that one of the things that people don't realize they can do on that same vein is you can create quizzes for your people. Like, let's say you have a company of 10 people, or you can create a policy question, or, hey, what do you do in this situation? And you give them A, B, C, D, E answers, right? Let's just say you create 10, 20 questions. You can then go and get a visual report from your entire team on how they answered those questions. Like what's the most important thing to them? Like if we're ranking, company priorities, core values, 1 to 10, whatever it is, you can literally create any kind of poll, any kind of interaction you want, and get instant results. We're doing it with the CSIA right now, where they're an online partner. They're having the training schools, and we're having the guys do their tests every day. And we're immediately, at the end of every quiz, in real time, live, we're pulling up the results, and we're looking, okay, you answered these 20 questions. On question number 4, 18 of you got it right, 4 of you got it wrong. But on question 9, 10 of you got it right, 20 of you got it wrong. So either I need to teach better on why these 20 people got it wrong, or I'm not clearly explaining it. So there's just so much that you can do to get a pulse of your organization through something that you've already paid for. So,
to that point, as a leader, you could do this yourself. And we're not trying to add more to the leader, but let's just say you just write down the questions that people ask you every day. Just write them down. And then you could determine, you could give somebody on your team or do it yourself. Okay, these are my answers to these things I get asked all the time. And then that becomes an easy quiz. And if anybody's on SureFire needs help with this, Brianna, you just go to surefire.academy, get her number, call her. She can help you set all the stuff up that helps you build your own team thing. Like we at SureFire develop stuff that's broad scale, but you also need to drill down into who you are and use a platform to get your own specifics down. We can't create content for everybody. It's pretty broad, but you can create very specific content plus our broad content. And you get a lot of bang for that. But good stuff. And then Kyle, so here's Kevin. He's a Kyle service manager in training. So,
awesome. You're in good hands, Kevin. So
yeah,
good to see you interacting, man.
Yeah, it's great. It's how we learn, right? It's how we learn, and trying to help each other and make sure I don't have any more. Diane says, thanks. Have a great night. Janet Eileen said that iPhone replacement text trick that you showed us was so helpful in all situations. Thank you for that. That's a good thing that you showed.
Awesome. Hey, Janet, send me your address. My email is on the screen. I forgot to get it before I left your place last week, and I want to send you a Sweep Away Cancer shirt. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And you got a lot of great tricks. Jake Cromwell says, I have a few select friends that always try to push all my buttons. They keep me working and listening. I think I'm one of them, maybe. I've pushed a few of his buttons for sure, at least in the past. And then the other button I push is the tequila button.
And tequila.
We got a few of those moments, Jake and I. So, all right, Alan, thank you so much for
thanks for having me, guys.
Time and wisdom with the group tonight, and I appreciate you very much.
All right, you too, man.
See you, buddy. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Love talking to Alan. He's so knowledgeable about how chimney companies work, and he just has a lot of insight. Like for me as an owner, I pretty much know how mine works and a few others, but Alan gets a very wide range, and it's why he's so valuable to this whole thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed tonight, and again, if you want to come see us at MACA, that's the big event we're trying to fill up for that MidAtlantic. February 24th, 25th, and we'll see you then if you can make it. If not, I won't be here next week. Next Tuesday, I've actually got to speak at an event in Phoenix for an entrepreneur group, but I believe Jake Loeffler, not Cromwell. We've been talking to Jake Cromwell. Jake Loeffler is going to take over next week for us, and he will be a great host and have a topic. I'm not quite sure what it is yet. So again, thank you so much for joining us for tonight's conversation, and we'll talk to you soon.